back to the alternate future history of the world. Not alternate future, alternate history of the world. So he went over the first 1,000 years of history in this world. I actually think it is pretty dumb to just have a timetable at the bottom. I just want to interpret it, want you guys to interpret it, what kind of like how Eddie's Pro does it with his series, with his one series, the very famous one, Riscos. We'll be doing the same thing because also it'll be tiring to constantly update it so you can focus on the actual stuff of a substance. So in this episode, a civilization emerges in Cider. It will not be called Cider, however, as this is my own world, so I can call the countries whatever I want, and this is Zenado. And so, in record history, countries' names are going the same. So Zenado is named after the king as well, and only the capital cities are known for now, So I didn't actually make it like a bright yellow. The city is a bright yellow. There we go. And making all the capital cities bright yellow. We'll get into stuff like trade routes and provinces in the future. For now, it's just the beginning of civilization, so so this is the color we will be using now for capitals. A bright yellow. So Morza will continue to expand. This is the Persian country. Most of the country names are mostly named after the leaders or like local areas. So Morza is named after the local after the sea, Caspian Sea. So that's what they named the country, and they expand all the way further up north into basically the LOC as well. Zinga will also start to expand relatively rapidly as well, meeting up with Morza as well in the civilization of war of battle. These two countries are about to have a lot of tension because of this as well. However, Astros, which is the Greek country, continues to expand further west, further east and west at the same time. There I got you guys. They expanded both ways as well. However, the age of expansion will be over as these countries have become much more unstable as well. As the native peoples of the land do not really take too kindly to the annexation of the lands and territories. Meanwhile, in North America, where civilization managed to start off Tulsa expand a new country in the Carolinas is created as well stretching all the way toward the Appalachians, was kind of like a barrier at this current moment, kind of like how Florida is too. Florida will kind of be a nomad's land for a while, so we have Nuzia. That's this country right here. What's the biggest capital city? There we go. We got it. The capital city will be right here. The train port, right here. Mira Pronovia isn't capital. Won't really expand much further into Texas, as there isn't really much beside because it's getting much too dry. And it's for its current state. Civilization can't really expand in more dry regions that are not really rely on water. So this area can kind of have nothing for a while. However, the Midwest is prime candidate for civilizations. It sees a whole entire area to call its home. the Great Lakes region. And they go all the way up towards Wisconsin and Michigan, and even part of Canada as well, forming this new Great Lake colony. Odam, which is basically the Mayans, will be joined by this country right here. Teresia as well. However, there's gonna be a few wars. Morza and Zinga they both want control over the Caspian Sea. However, both countries disagree with each other on this. Morza wants to basically expand all the way here. Zinga wants thus the other half. Of course, both countries cannot agree and start fighting a war with each other. Here, Zinga starts to invade. Zinga Rad starts to be invaded relatively quickly. However, the reason why this Rad's being invaded relatively quickly is this Rad has nobody in it as well. Meanwhile, Zinga actually has the advantage as well here. There's this little chokehold here, and Zingan troops start to enter Morza very quickly. However, the mountains are a huge problem, and they move very, very slowly. Meanwhile, Zingan troops continue to expand throughout the Caspian Sea as well here, and these areas are being invaded relatively easily by the Zingan armies. No, not the Morzan armies. Here, the Morzan armies start to invade up here. However, this becomes a problem as now they're becoming the more populated areas. And this area is very lightly populated as of now, so it's very easy to conquer this little area right here. Here, meanwhile, the Zingans start to push into parts of Morza as well here, and their troops make a beeline for the capital city. The problem is Morza's capital is in a very bad location. Okay, it's very, very, very close to Zinga and Kuringa. It's not the only country that does it. Like, both countries could easily defeat Norsa this way. Norsa is actually much more powerful than Zinga. However, most of the military is focusing on this area here and not protecting the capital. What the king realizes that, and the military finally makes it back to push back against Zinga. Zinga gets a minor pushback as well here. However, Zinga, because of the wash of troops over here, they start to push back against them as well here. Here, Morza starts to take over much of the northern part of the country, and they actually have make a plan to basically surround the country's capital here. Because of the weak leadership, many factions in the Morzans break out. The king's brother, who refused to help, now basically creates his own country right here. He starts to rebel at the very end, and he starts to annex and take a waterland from Morza. The king of Morza is defeated, and Morza surrenders. Yes, Morza is defeated, and now the peace treaty. So the king's brother will now be able to form his own country right here. He names him after himself, which is Alexia. His name is Alex, but he put the IA at the end to signify it's a country. The capital city will be here, as there's no real major cities here, and that's what the capital will be. Zinga will annex all of the Caspian Sea area. It is now theirs, but then what do we do with this area right here? Yeah. The problem is this area kind of has no value because there's not many people living in it. So this area becomes a puppet state. The country will not have a name. It'll just be called Z Puppet State. So this is just a puppet, Zynga's puppet state. It doesn't really have a name or identity right now, but it will eventually be given one. And of course, Morza is now pushed back here. And now has a new king, who they can't do anything. And they finally make a good decision and put the capital down here near the coast. So it'll be very hard to actually get to now. However, Korea is no longer the most powerful country in the world. It's now Zynga. Zynga now has gained all of the trade in the ancient world now, which pisses off the Korean king. The Korean king, however, can't really expand because this land is worthless. This land is worthless, and this is a hostile country towards you. However, they do invade the Termites. The Termites, which are kind of a peaceful country at this current moment, are now starting to be invaded. The Termites are shocked by this invasion as well here. Here. This invasion, however, goes very, very well. However, a third country wants land for the Termites, which is Astros. They see this as an opportunity to invade as well, and they start to invade from the north. The Termites, they did not see this coming. They did not see this war coming as well, and they are kind of screwed, almost per se. Yeah. They were able to get to the capital city relatively quickly. Yeah. And they are able to invade the capital city. Meanwhile, the Greek country gets towards the Termites here as well. And the country surrenders. Yep, just like that. The Termites lose as well. So what would be the outcome of the war? Of this war? So Astros and the Corenia will have a border with each other. That means most of the world is now mostly just these three empires. There are three major empires now, and they are basically, they all really don't like each other. Zynga doesn't really like Corenia because they are expansionist. Astros, Astros and Corenia are neutral right now, but Astros and Zynga do not like each other, as they know they'll overlap with borders eventually. Now let's go to North America. North America has kind of been really peaceful. However, Tulsa starts to expand into like where Tennessee is and northern Georgia. This pisses off Louisiana, this new country right here, who also wants this land too once they expand. They want this land right here. However, Tulsa does not want to give it up. This starts a war between both of them. Louisiana starts a mass invasion of Tulsa here, with hundreds of thousands of troops invading here. However, the war goes to a screeching halt as they kind of run out of troops. Yep, they sent the whole army to claim this land. Tulsa's core land has not really been invaded that much, so Tulsa is able to actually push back against Louisiana very quickly now as well here. Louisiana's economy really collapses, and they lose. The war is over, and Louisiana collapses. Yep, the newest country in the world, basically collapses. Here, it is now absorbed into Tulsa. And yeah, now we're back to just only having 3 countries in North America. And yeah, the other two countries are doing very well economically. These two countries don't really have any beef with each other as well here. And however, a new civilization, this is the cliffhanger for today, begins in the Amazon rainforest, an unlikely area for a civilization. But they do begin. Amazonia is created. Yes, we are calling the civilization Amazonia because I like that name. So, yeah, there we go. That is the first real jungle civilization. It is kind of strange that jungle civilizations are never really a thing. And also, the Amazon rainforest is the main transportation of the civilization. So it's kind of like ancient Egypt, where most of the people travel by river. Okay, it's kind of basically the ancient Egypt of South America as well here. And this country is already one of the biggest superpowers because of this, because their capital city will be right here on the Amazon, will be on the Amazon River, obviously. And also we're gonna have to get the color here, and its capital will be right here. And that is it for episode 2 of What If Civilization Alternate World, no, what alternate history of our world. And yeah, goodbye.